This priest claimed he was, kind of doing spiritual retreats for middle school guys. And with three of us, he took on a retreat overnight. We get there, he's got beer, and we weren't even into beer. It's like we're at an age where it's like, what are you doing? That night, he sexually assaulted me. But obviously, I woke up to him on top of me, and, it was not pleasant.
And you held that in all the way until college?
Yeah.
Were you interested in Catholicism as a child, or was it more of a chore?
It was never a chore. I went to church with my family, and we could actually walk to church. We were that close to the church, a few blocks. But as fate would have it, I was molested by a priest when I was 11, and that changed my trajectory for a long time. I just said, I'm never going back to that place, to a church, and I kind of stuck to it. And I kept it hidden until I was in college, and then I told my parents what had happened, and then it started to make sense because I changed dramatically, as you can imagine your personality would when it's soul-crushing to be sexually abused by anybody, but when it's a representative of God's church, it just spins way out of control. The devil comes right in and starts telling you God hates you, he never cared about you, your parents hate you. It was every possible lie, and you don't know what to believe. So I kind of spun out of control. I'm pretty headstrong and have a strong will, and I just decided no one's going to hurt me like that again. Joined the football team, lifted a ton of weights for a long time to become as big as I could, and then thinking that would be, I'll be strong enough where I can defend. And once you become a man, you kind of don't have to worry about those sort of things. But
can we rewind?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
This priest claimed he was, kind of doing spiritual retreats for middle school guys. And with three of us, he took on a retreat overnight. We get there, he's got beer, and, we weren't even into beer. It's like we're at an age where it's like, what are you doing? And that night, he sexually assaulted me. But obviously, I woke up to him on top of me, and, it was not pleasant.
And you held that in all the way until college?
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Did you have to continue to go to that same church?
No, I didn't go. I never went. I stopped. And I would just tell my parents, I'm walking to church, I'm going to this mass, bye. And then I would go hang out at the parking lot or the playground. And I did this, I went to Catholic education my whole life, grammar school, high school, college was even Catholic, but I did not go to church. I didn't participate in any of the sacraments.
How did you overcome that there's so many kids out there, even just on this show. I would say 50% of the guests or more have been through some type of sexual trauma as a child. And so for all the kids that are listening or who are going to go through that, who are going through it, who have been through it, how did you get over that?
I'm not the best example because what I did is not the right way to go. I just shut down God and his church. I kind of went my own way. I rebelled. I became a really bad kid. My parents didn't know what was going on, but they knew something is wrong. But back then, nobody even dreamed this was a possibility. We're talking the 70s. So they just kept grounding me because I was always out partying and drinking and having fun with the crazy kids. And, college was my ticket out of there, where I just get away from this whole thing. But that's where I finally went into it and realized this has to be dealt with. You can't just go through life like this. And I kind of just looked at it objectively, like, I guess bad things happen to people who don't deserve them. It happens all the time. I guess I'm a victim of that. But I'm not going to let that, be the guiding force in my life. Like, it's an event, but it doesn't have to be the force that's going to shape and mold you. So, like, live your life already. But I was living my life without God, and that's the first mistake. Don't throw God out when something bad happens. It's not his fault. You can't blame God for his cheap labor. So I would say if you're a kid and something bad has happened to you, tell your parents, regardless of how embarrassing it was or how shameful it was or whatever. They got to get involved, because the only way you're going to get quick help is when they know something has happened. Now, if your parent is the part of the problem, if they're abusing you, then you have to get help from somebody else. Go to a teacher.
How do you feel that the Catholic Church deals with this? I mean, it has been a reoccurring problem within the church.
Again, I'm not probably the most informed, but probably more than the lay people. I think a lot of good provisions have been put into place to stop this. But my own case, I was one of 17 from the same priest.
One of 17.
So that could have been prevented long ago, before I was even, on the horizon there. The bishops kept moving him, and that's what happens, So I blame the bishops. They could have prevented this. And I'm not going to make any excuse from it at all, because one kid is enough to say, no, we're not going to let that happen again. But right here in Franklin, there was just a priest removed a few months ago. So it's still not completely over.
Yeah.
And you got to go back to the seminaries and say, you got to have better detection systems when somebody is open to this sort of sexual behavior. There has to be a way to screen it. There has to be. When I first came back to the faith, I found a priest in New York who I really liked. He was a Franciscan friar of the Renewal, Father Benedict Rochelle. He also was a psychiatrist. And he told me he'd interviewed probably 1,000 priests who did these things to kids, usually in prison. And what he noticed with all of them is they had stopped praying. He would just say, when did you stop praying at your office, the breviary? It's the one prayer we have to pray every day. We don't have to say Mass every day, but we have to pray this set of prayers. It's the only promise we take, is to do that, in obedience to our bishop. And they would all say, how did you know? And he said, because I've been interviewing you guys for years now, and it's the common denominator. Now, that doesn't take away the problem. If somebody has an inherent problem that they're attracted to children, even praying is not going to be enough, I don't think. But you can see that was a factor. They gave up praying, and they basically threw in the towel, and they gave in to the desires. But there has to be a model that you can be screening in seminary to figure out. I have to believe they know they have this desire. We know what we want. We know what attracts us, what makes us, get aroused. And if that's you, for the sake of the kingdom of God and for your own soul, admit it and get out of there and get help. That has to be an option that they give on day one. If this is something you're attracted to, we want to help you, but you cannot be ordained.
Do you think this was actually a Patreon question? I didn't want to kick the interview off that heavy. But do you think that if priests were allowed, if they were allowed to marry, do you think that do you think this would solve a greater portion of the problem?
No.
No.
They're not interested with sex with women. Clearly. That's not what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And no one's going to put themselves into a marriage. And look at the poor woman in a marriage that's a ruse, that's just a shield. The woman's going to know pretty quickly, he's not interested in me. He never wants to sleep with me. So, what is he looking for then? That's what they were looking for.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
I'm sorry that happened.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.